All right, I got 5 o'clock, so I'm gonna call the meeting to order. Open Meetings Act is posted on the wall over here, as always. And Lisa, you wanna call the roll?
Lance?
Here.
Brad?
Yes.
Tyler?
Here.
And Sean is absent due to illness.
All right. Would you all join me in the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, move on to the consent agenda. All items can be approved with passage of one motion, or they can be considered separately. What's your pleasure?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Second.
Moved and a tie for second. Any,
Skylar?
He's mad.
We'll give it to
okay, second by
Score
Scott.
one.
Any other discussion? Call the roll.
Brad?
Yes.
Skylar?
Aye.
Lance?
Motion carried unanimously. Move on to item number 3, appointments and marriage report. I confess I didn't give this a lot of thought, but I don't think I have much to report. I did attend a ribbon cutting at the solar farm in the middle of November. That was a good day. It's good to see that project up and running.
Cold that day.
A little bit of cold wind. I wish we'd have done it the day before.
Yep.
But it worked out. The guy from GRNE was very informative. I enjoyed listening to him tell us about the project. No appointments this month, and so we'll move on to item 4, public hearings, which we don't have any of those either. Leads us to item number 5, old business. Discuss and consider options for city garbage service. This is probably the main topic.
We don't need a whole lot of introduction since we've talked about it several times, but it's been tabled and looking for some more public input and kind of get the information out to the public. So we did do, and I'm probably gonna not say the right word, an editorial or a service announcement or however you want to term it. Our media people can correct me. And we did an interview on the radio, of course, minutes that go on the paper and everything, so hopefully the public has had an opportunity to hear the information and form some opinions and make their feedback known if they wish to do so.
I had 3 comments. I think I sent 2 of them to you, which are so probably on the list here, but 2 people prefer that the city continue running the garbage. The 3rd person recommended that we not go with J&J, and that it was Betsy Weeble. She suggested there's a couple smaller outfits, one in Valentine, one in Atkinson, that might be interested in the contract. And so that was her. I don't know if she prefers city or contracting it out, but she said if we do contract, she preferred we try one of these smaller outfits, or at least consider one of the smaller outfits.
Yeah, so for the council table, I guess, we had several call-ins just at the city office. We had a couple of like handwritten notes, left in the drop box, or people come in and make their payments, left notes. So we just, for purposes of ease of reviewing those for you guys, we kind of did a quick tally. For the ones we received, that includes who Skylar talked to and also who Sean talked to. He had talked to 3 individuals, 2 were for J&J, 1 was for the city keeping it. So out of all of those tallies, the total were basically 6 for contracting with J&J and 22 prefer that the city keep it and purchase a truck.
talked to, well, as far as ones that contacted me, I think I had 10 or 12 people contact me, which has been actually the last 3 or 4 days. And it's been about 50-50. Mainly when I bring it up to somebody, their opinion really, that whatever, as long as the trash is picked up, I don't care. Because the dollars were just, you know, what's been reported has been so close that so the majority of me said they don't care. I say the ones that had an opinion, it's to 10 to 12 people, it's been about 50-50. One thing you know, what did, if we keep it, what's our backup plan? Because everybody knows even new equipment breaks down. A piece of equipment like this, electric over hydraulics, there's gonna be a lot of that on this. With an arm like that, you know, 20 degrees below zero, that stuff sometimes doesn't work well. You know, I'm looking at it as, if it breaks down, what's our backup plan? Parts availability now, warranty work, you know, are we gonna be down for 3, 4, 5 days? Even though it's a new piece of equipment, we have a backup plan.
Has our numbers included like selling the old truck?
No.
Okay, because we could, I mean, I kind of thought about that too, we could potentially keep the old truck too, just as a backup, but.
What we do now is the current truck, we do have a backup truck. So we probably will get rid of that truck regardless of what we do. But that's up to the council. I mean, if you want to hold on to that piece of equipment as a backup, we can certainly do that. Like I said, that's what historically we've done.
You're saying we have 2 trucks, what you're saying?
We do.
Vance, did you have any opening comments? Otherwise, I might ask if we have folks out.
I didn't say my feedback, I didn't get a whole lot of feedback, it sounds like everyone else got, they must be more approachable.
Just the mask.
Yeah. I was pretty split, even 50-50. I would say most of the concerns are things that are gonna be changing either way. The no alley pickups, maybe being a little bit more strict on, it's gotta be in the can, that sort of, which either way we're going, those are gonna be changes that people are, just to make it feasible, they could buy the new truck, even if the side on it's gotta be in the can. So most of the concerns really are that and the cost going up, which is either way, that's just where we're at. So it was, yeah, pretty 50-50 with people that I talked to as well. They talked to some, you know, Main Street type deals, and that's something we'll have to hammer out either way. Does everybody have a canister or a dumpster, or how is that gonna get treated? Just so that, you know, have one business that's got a dumpster that 5 other people are just dropping their trash in when they're not looking. So that's, and I don't know what the solution to that is, other than if everyone's got most Main Street businesses, I would assume would be able to get by with a big canister, wouldn't need a full dumpster where it wouldn't be a space issue necessarily. But that is something probably to think about, because I know there are some that don't, could go drop off, and I've seen, witnessed some cases where they go drop into a different business dumpster.
And we have those issues now.
Yeah, it's one of those things that,
It's kind of.
it's not a J&J or city, it's a,
And there
it's
are,
a general problem that either way is going to be.
there are things that can be done. I mean, put a lock bar on it. We talked about those with those particular businesses, so aside from that, there's probably not a whole lot we can do.
I don't see why somebody would be putting garbage in somebody else's dumpster when they're gonna get billed for it anyway. If we're gonna make sure that, you know, everybody gets a bill, we can't opt out of it.
The people though that have a dumpster pay more than the people who don't. Is really what that boils down to.
Have comments
So
from the
is
public?
Is there no alternative available to keep picking the trash up in the alley? I mean, is that not an option that's available under any conditions?
Yeah, I don't understand how we want to, we talk about beautifying our city and now we're gonna put dumpsters out in front of our businesses. I mean, that just,
Not Main Street. Main Street would continue to be alley pickup where it's paved. The main concern picking up an alley is the wear and tear on the truck and the wear and tear on the alley. So Main Street, so for your business where that is paved, that will continue to be through the alley like it is.
And the other issue is overhead power lines. So if the whole point of, the new truck is to do a hands-off approach on the garbage where it's automated, so the physical labor is sort of taken out of that equation, it's gonna be some kind of an arm lifting the container. When you have overhead power lines running the alleys, you just don't have clearance and room to do that safely, probably as a standard.
So what are they gonna do when it snows and the trash cans are on the city streets?
And they roll a windrow of snow up along the curb.
Those arms can reach over top of those windrows.
Okay, so then what about mail delivery? Because right now, a lot of people put their dumpsters in front, or their trash cans in front of the mailboxes, and then the mailman cannot put the mail in the mailboxes.
And inevitably, there's gonna be things that will have to be ironed out. I mean, these are just logistical issues that, whether it's city or JJ, even in current service, we have these types of issues that we problem solve and work through with the particular homeowner and the businesses and do what we need to do to make sure everything is gonna work like it's supposed to.
I've been working on it for like 6 summers now. And when you were talking about hydraulics and new parts and stuff, our one that we have now breaks down quite often. And there has been one time where we broke a line for hydraulics and they were able to fix it within an hour or two. For the most part, they've been great about coming out and fixing it right away. I think the longest I've maybe sat is maybe half an hour, hour tops for them to get it fixed and up and running again. So that kind of stuff hasn't been as bad, but it is breaking down. But they usually have the parts.
Say in the 6 years I've been in the city office, we've run iron sides
I haven't
half a
never been
dozen
on that.
times maybe. It doesn't see the light of day all that often. So we've been fortunate.
Yeah.
I don't know what the general consensus is. I came in late here. Maybe this has already been talked about, but putting the business out for somebody else to take care of it or keeping it local. As soon as you turn it loose to somebody else, they don't care about us as much as we care about us. I think it'd be better off to buy another truck, keep it our own, be our own entity. If his water pipe breaks, it's not any skin off my nose. I can say deal with it, suffer. But if mine breaks, I want it fixed. And that's just the way it is with our own, the truck situation. I just don't see it being advantageous to send it up to J&J or whoever you're looking at.
Now, if I understand, they would look to whoever they to be having running our 3 or however many days a week they schedule that. They'd likely be a person that they would have in the community, just for ease's sake, I assume, if they're gonna be coming here. So really, to that, I don't see how giving it to a private business, that business cares about their
I
customer
want you to
relationships.
think about the little country schools and what happened to them when that was all turned to the city.
I was just,
When the city took over the county, the whole county schools, how many county schools are left?
so the city then should keep our trash because the city did a bad job with the
It's all,
county.
it's all
To
the
me,
same.
if it's a
and
business,
it's-
that business does care about the relationship with their customers. You're a business owner, you care about the relationship with your customers.
I'm aware of
It's
that.
not that it's a city entity
But
or
they
a private
can,
entity.
they can start yanking our chain, just like the city public schools shut down the country schools because they couldn't control them. And they'll work on us too.
I don't have any skin in the game other than working for,
Go ahead.
I don't have any skin in the game other than working for a company here in town. Come from a different area, this is not an issue that just pertains to here. I can tell you for a fact that this same issue came up, just a couple of years ago. They did opt to send it out to a private contract company. and got rid of their trash service. The first thing that went was the service. And the second thing that went was the cost. After they got in, they turned around and looked at it and they says, well, we could have bought 2 new trucks for what we paid for in the first 3 years. And, you know, you say that, but anytime you can keep something local, I believe is better.
And I spoke with 3 communities, J&J, I haven't spoken to the other communities, Skyler, so there's a couple other options out there. All 3 communities had very positive responses, that cost was pretty much comparable to your general inflationary increases, the 1 to 3% per year that you would expect, and service, they were very feasible as far as reaching, so.
I had kind of a, this is kind of a secondhand note. A gal called to discuss the garbage thing, and she said that a council, and so this is, like I said, this is secondhand, so I don't, this isn't from the source. She said a council member from Springview, whatever, previous council member from Springview, said that he wishes they would have kept the garbage service instead of contracting out.
Well, I say, my granddaughter is 7th generation in this area. I care about this area. I'm Mary Jane Bonteager. My dad was Jim Bonteager. And I don't know if they would keep her on as city trash. And I want our people taken care of. You know, I want our people employed. So yes, I'm very much for keeping it with our city, not going outside the city and contracting.
I did talk to several people from Bassett and also Springview, I didn't call the city offices and those. I talked to some community members that have a service, and they're all plumb happy with what they got. I mean, they have no complaints at all, and I think Rock County's been with them for several years outside, and they're plumb happy with contracting it out.
So it feels to me like you folks are all for contracting it out, but the rest of us, no matter what we say, it's just we're blowing smoke.
Yeah, we're just going against a brick wall.
Every comment has been met with opposition from you.
I would have to say over the last, since we've discussed this, I actually honestly have been back and forth 5 or 6 different times. And if you ask me right now, I have not made a 100% decision yet on which way I'm gonna go. I have done a lot of calling, people have talked to me. One day I'll go one way, the next, so I'm still up in the air.
But the people that have lived here and had grandpas and great-grandpas live
I
here,
lived
want to
I lived
stay
here all my
with the
life,
city.
57 years.
I about know how long
I
you've
know
lived here. I
what's going
remember
on.
when your dad came here as a state patrolman, Brad.
Anybody else? John?
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna come at it from a little different angle. Well, back when I was on the council in the early 90s, I was involved with the Scouts when they went around and picked up newspaper, and we sat there on Saturdays and stuffed a van trailer full of them and then gave them the money back. So I mean, Ainsworth, at that time, I think if I remember correctly, and my memory is starting to fail me, but we picked up paper in Long Pine. So I mean, it was somewhat of a county-wide effort, but I mean, the recycling has started. Then I was on the council when we set the transfer station up. The goal of the transfer station was to give us an alternative to you know, since we had to do away with the dump. We tried to work with the surrounding counties, and for a variety of reasons that didn't work. But we went ahead and put up our own. And the idea when we put that up was to go ahead and have an alternative to just hauling trash. So we went ahead and set up a recycling center and went and all part of the trash and recycled what we could. Well, I guess in talking to the garbage guru now, he says that it's cost $32 a ton tipping fee to go to Lexington. All right, they got $200 for cardboard bales here not too long ago. Understand that's the extreme high that they've ever had. There's been times they've had to hold on to that stuff. They've had numerous grants to build storage, to do all this stuff. I mean, they have mined this grant deal as best they could. In fact, they've got a grant right now to do on a backhoe. And so, I mean, I'm really want to keep that deal going out there. I don't know what the attitude of the council is. I mean, Bruce indicated that you guys were wanting to keep that going.
That is
but-
number one,
Yeah.
is make sure that that transfer station
Well,
stays. So that is, I'll never vote to stop that transfer station and have it leave this county.
Well, and
That
the
also
sad thing is,
services the
that-
whole county, not just town.
yeah, now it is. I mean, it has been that way, but
Right.
the sad thing is, and I asked Bruce this the other day when I was talking to him, I said, how much cardboard do you think is still going in the truck? And he and I agreed on a guess, I mean, it's a wild ass guess, that 50% of cardboard was still going in that truck and being hauled at Lexington. But the problem is, the people, we've had that transfer station out there for over 20 years. And the people that are recycling, the ones that are doing it, have been doing it. And to get that 50%, and understand that's growing because a lot of people are ordering from Amazon Prime and stuff, the cardboard is gonna go up exponentially. The newspaper has come down because that's all been digitalized. But I think that and I'm not here to try to convince people that they need to recycle. I mean, I think after 20 years that the 50% that are, you know, throwing it in there, and there's more than 50% because the amount of recycling out here is not anywhere approaching what it could be. But I think it is vitally important to keep that transfer station open. All right, on a personal note, due to my waste reduction, and I'm a single man, and I you know, sometimes I eat out, sometimes I eat at home, but I've got it down to a situation now where every 6 weeks I set out my 35-gallon dumpster or trash receptacle. 5 weeks in a row, the city truck drives by and doesn't have to stop and pick it up. And now you want to come in because of your mandatory, and I understand why you're doing that, but with your mandatory pricing, to where I have to pay for those 5 weeks. I haven't minded the extra $2 because I figured, you know, that's somewhere $12, $13 to pick up my trash over the period of time. But now it's you're going to raise it approximately $13 a month, and I don't think that's right. I guess you're penalizing me, who's trying to do things the right way, I feel, because you know, and I don't disagree with it, that there's people out there that are gonna try to figure out a way to get around it if you don't do it mandatory. But I think there should be an opt-out provision where I have to come in and sign a paper saying I'm gonna take care of it, because I want to haul mine every 6 weeks. I want to haul what little I got out there and continue to recycle. But otherwise, if you're going to charge me $13 a month more, you're taking away the incentive for me to recycle.
I'm like you, John, if we're having an option to opt out, I will opt out, because I go out, I'm out there every day, close by there. I mean, I can haul my trash and save that extra dollars. So if I'm able to opt out, I will, and just pay the transfer fee of the $12 and.
Yeah, I mean, I got no problems with
And
that.
I'll pay that and not, but if you get a lot of people doing that, you get, say, 25% of the people, then our numbers are gonna go up as far as what the garbage truck, if we buy a truck and try to
Don't
split that up, that's
disagree
gonna
with
go
that.
up.
That's
Or if
a
we
tough
contract
balancing act.
outside, you know.
But you aren't going to have 25%.
And then, but then you're gonna get these people that don't care what their garage looks like, what their yard looks like. They're gonna opt out, and they're just gonna get piled up, bag after bag outside. Dogs are gonna get into it.
There's going to be a certain amount of that.
And you know, we're trying to clean up the community the way it is and trying to get this trash picked up. So if you don't make everybody mandatory to pay the garbage fee, I really think you're gonna see the trash piled up in people's backyards, behind their houses or garages.
I think you ought to give those of us that are trying to do it the opportunity to opt
But how do you
out.
get,
Now, whether you wanna do,
how do you offer one person and not everybody that opportunity?
well, I'm not saying you can't, you gotta offer everybody that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you,
I know in Valentine that if you take in jars, if you recycle, you get credit towards your bill.
well,
And I think something like that, I mean,
That'd be something the transfer station themselves would
yeah,
have to look into.
we do a lot of
Not the city.
recycling in Valentine because they take glass and they take, is it tin cans that they don't take out here?
And I broached that subject, Bruce and I have talked about this, that if the city keeps it and we buy this truck, you know, is there a way, if, you know, right now we run 3 days a week. You know, this new truck, from what we've heard from Minden, you know, and seeing it, we anticipate there's efficiencies to be gained in time of running the routes, you know, maybe we could work in a day where we did cardboard. And so we've kind of been discussing that those are all, there's a lot of assumptions because, you know, we won't necessarily really know how we can do that until we're in the position. where
I
we
know in
that.
bigger cities, I've got kids out there in the Seattle area, and I know that they have a dumpster that's for yard waste, and they have a dumpster that's for cardboard, and they have a dumpster that, well, cardboard and plastic, and they have a dumpster that's for house waste. And they spot check them, and if you mess up, you get fined, it's huge. It's a huge thing, they kind of have to follow after me, because,
Yeah, Bassett has yard waste too, but we haven't put that in an option here yet.
but that takes several trucks too.
Yeah.
I mean,
it all costs.
it all
If
costs.
you're gonna do that,
But
it
there
all
are
costs.
things potentially, you know, down the road that could be looked at, that where we could try to, you know, if the city continues, and there might be things that could be done, it's just we don't know those things yet, so we don't wanna put the cart before the horse, but there could be potential for things like that.
One other point that I would like to add as far as Bruce and his, the transfer station is concerned, these cities that are towns that J&J hauls to, a lot of them don't have a recycling program per se, and I'm not sure, it might be minimal, none at all, or anyway, but there's a North Central, and I don't know the name of the organization, it's a quasi-government deal, and they organize recycling in Spencer, O'Neill, Atkinson, Stewart, and then they skip us and go to Valentine. You know why they skip us? Because we're doing all the stuff that they're doing with Laswell, Lexington Area Solid Waste Agency. They come up here, they pick up the paint. They do a lot of things. There's some benefits to belonging to Laswell, and
And yeah, we're not all even considering stopping that type of stuff.
well, I think it's important, you know, we've had this conversation about the garbage trucks and what we're gonna do with it, but I think it's important that the public know that there is something else that's involved in this, and that's that transfer station.
Yeah, that's been part of the discussion all along, that we are keeping that open.
Okay, well, I've never heard that, and I've tried to be here for all the meetings, I haven't made them all, so.
And I wish you could figure out how to get everybody to recycle more, because I think that's something we need to do too, but,
You
Well-
first have to get somebody to buy the recycled stuff. How many years did the tin cans sit out there because they're not worth
Yep.
anything? The cardboard, the newsprint,
Yep.
at the Star Journal, every week, we haul our newsprint out, it gets baled up, and then it just sits there, because they're not making the insulation as much as they used to, and on and on. You have to have a way to get rid of that recycled stuff before it's worth recycling.
I know cost is an issue, but when garbage it costs this much to get rid of it, and if it only costs this much to recycle, maybe you pay the cost of the recycling and you come out ahead, you know,
Well, I think.
that's not part of this discussion.
I think Bruce told me that it was $46, the last cost that check you did on what it cost to bale it. But
That's been some time ago, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
it cost $46 if they got 200. Understand these recyclables are a commodity. I mean, they're just like all commodities. And there have been times that, I don't know how long they had to sit on the cardboard like Rod said, but they've got the storage and stuff.
But
And it worked.
there has to be somebody that wants it.
There was a time here not too long ago where we just about came to the point where we had our storage facility full, and we were to the point where we'd have to start putting in the truck.
We never got to that point, we came real close, but we didn't get to.
So if you're considering whether you do the contract or keep it with the city, is there any advantage to keeping it with the city if you're going, if you would have some kind of an initiative toward recycling? Because if you have a contract with J&J, and you come to, and you did want to do some kind of initiative to recycle, how's that gonna affect their contract? Or with the city, you've got it in-house, you can manipulate what you're doing that way.
Yeah, and that was kind of the purpose actually of Bruce and I's conversation was that, you know, the interlocal payment that the city contributes to the transfer station, you know, is a fixed cost for the city and the other three participating communities that form the interlocal that runs the transfer station. So if you can increase revenue from the transfer station through recyclables, and like John just said, we know they're out there and we see these things getting thrown in the back of the truck. So there is money there potentially. Like, again, you have to have a buyer for that material, but there is opportunity there for increased revenue for the transfer station. You get increased revenue on the transfer station, potential decrease on the expense side for the local communities, which figures into rates and everything else that we figure when we set those costs. So those are conversations we've been having about how to maximize that, especially when you get into times like now where you're getting $200, on cardboard. That's something that we should be trying to take advantage of.
Well, you're gonna get these supersized trash receptacles, and all that's gonna do is make it more easy to take that cardboard and stick it in there. And I quite frankly am to the point that you're getting all the recycling that you're gonna get other than some new people moving in town, maybe around the holidays, but you aren't gonna convince the people that aren't recycling out there to recycle.
Especially if they've got room to put it in a dumpster.
Some of it, I think what helps is when I've been out there.
I mean,
Even if you
I
carry stuff in
would-
a box, while I was out there, Ed was real good. Even if I had stuff in a box that normally, well, I recycle most of my boxes, but the box that the trash is in, throw that out. He was good at going, hey, let's recycle that piece. So I think the staff helps as much as anything there, as far as getting those ones that wouldn't keep it back themselves.
Ask Bruce what his opinion is as far as being able to get more people to recycle.
I bet if we had, I mean, hypothetically, if we were to have like a recycling bin for people, I bet that would increase recycling. I mean, maybe not a ton.
We do
but-
have that.
You got that.
Well, but
You
you
got
know,
that.
like one outside their house. One you don't have to
Well, I
drive
mean,
across town to.
You can't hold everybody's
4 or 5
hand.
different
There has to be a
cans
certain
outside
amount of
and people aren't
personal
using that.
responsibility.
It is definitely personal responsibility, and
Yeah.
it's a personal, whether they have any interest in it, like you do, you have a lot of interest in recycling, and you do a very good job of it, and it is definitely a mindset and a habit.
We could do the credit situation, we could do that, the billing and that sort of thing, keeping track of who's got that and all that sort of thing, we'd have to turn that in as, on a regular basis and stuff. But the logistics of that, we were trying to work on how to figure out how we would do that. I think that's probably a good idea, or you go by, people, you sell bags to people, but then again, they'd probably go through the city office, and you guys got that additional, record keeping and bookkeeping and et cetera. And it's tough to figure out an easy way to do that, that is economically feasible to do that. I mean, the price on the cardboard and the newspaper and the tin and the aluminum and stuff that we sold here recently, we've had a good run just recently. In the past, it's been real poor, and like John said, it's a commodity, those are commodities, and whatever the market brings, if you got China shut you down on newspaper and cardboard and stuff, the market goes down, and you're sitting on that cardboard out there, you can't get rid of it. So some of these things are really tough. I mean, that aluminum that we had out there, we had that for, oh God, I bet you almost 2 years, before we were able to really get a decent price, and we didn't get the price that I wanted to get out of it, but we got a fairly reasonable price. So we generate quite a bit of revenue doing that, and it's helped us out. You know, we were able to buy that backhoe and with the grant and stuff like that. And we actually we're in a cash position where we could probably try to replace that front end loader out there with one that's a little bit newer and in better shape. So it's those things like that. I mean, recycling is a tough thing. It's good. People feel good about it, but if you can't sell it and have some kind of a market for it and come out on it a little bit, it's tough. It really is tough.
I think we're kind of getting off,
Yeah.
Yeah, we are.
off track here.
Yeah.
I think probably everybody knows my opinion on the issue. It seems to me that if the city keeps the service, it'll be almost identical service. It'll be slightly more accountability because, you know, we're accountable. I mean, everybody is here to hold us to account. And the numbers, I mean, worst case scenario, the city's cheaper. I mean, if we pay for the truck only through rates, which we have other ways we can pay for it, if we do it only through rates, or only by increasing rates, it'll still be cheaper for the city to run the service by almost $2. I think we should do it through debt servicing. If we did it that way, then I think it would be, what was it, $17 was gonna be the total, so that'd be like a $5 difference, thereabout. So I think the city needs to keep the service.
We just, as far as I know, we have either going outside contract or doing it in-house, that we have not locked down any prices yet. They're still all that.
They're estimates,
Oh,
I mean, that's all
they're all
we have,
estimates.
though. I mean, we have to go off those numbers, and that's all we can do.
Exactly, so we're going off assumptions, so you can't really say,
but
you know,
based on-
$2 or.
Well, right, but based on the estimates, $2 worst case scenario versus, you know, $5. I mean, that's a significant difference, you know, I mean, you know, if we're off by 50 cents, you know, then that's still a big difference. So, I mean, I know they're estimates, but, I mean, that's kind of all we have to go on at this point, at this time. And by our estimates and the one servicer that we've spoken to, the city's cheaper. I think
Well,
that's the most important thing.
That $2 quote is depending on how you divvy it up. If you look at the gross amount that the service is gonna cost, when you put in the payment versus, it's pretty comparable, and if I recall, the J&J option was in that scenario a little bit less. Really,
Well, you're
the
talking
gain that
about
you
cost though, is that including the profit?
profit or loss, businesses can lose money just as good as they can make it.
I don't think they're coming here to make, to lose
The
money.
potential gain for the city would be if we retain it, eventually hopefully you gain equity in that truck. And then potentially down the road, maybe you know, say you trade it in 5 to 7 years, you've got pretty good equity, and then you can start adjusting the rates beyond that and have the service pay for itself. But the same potential gain there, you've got risks of, well, the workman's comp we've talked, which should go down with the new truck anyway, but it's still there. You've got breakdowns, things like that. So really, the way that they would potentially profit is by taking on risk. There's no such thing as a riskless profit. They're gonna have a profit because they're willing to take on that risk, or they could, which means they could potentially lose money too. If there wasn't a risk, there wouldn't be a question. We would do it. So to me, the way you fix that risk for the city is contract it out. We know what we're paying. That, talking with other communities is gonna stay pretty stable throughout. Now, we also have that potential to where, say, we've got our truck paid for, and probably would have to really probably be 10 years plus before we're actually just straight out equity to where the bill's fully paid for. By the time you needed a new truck, you'd have the funds there. But it takes time to build to that. You've got the risk that you never will. The other thing that hasn't been brought up too much is just the staffing of it. I know we've talked to people that are staffing, but the last few times I've seen the truck, it's had at least 2 people from other departments. Now, it's gonna take less people to run, but what's happening in those departments when you're stealing a guy from there to go on the truck? If someone's gone, you have to do that. Are you sacrificing the productivity of those departments as well just to keep the truck running? Which J&J, that's on them, they're handling. Or if that sounds like there's other options, Atkinson, Valentine, whatever those are. And I know, Bruce, we talked about the possibility of maybe seeing if there was a way to share staff with KBR. I know it's tough, just as anybody else, for you guys to find staffing.
It
And
is.
then, Scott, you even mentioned picking up, you know, the other communities. Is there options within the interlocal, but also within those other entities within the interlocal agreement, Johnstown, Long Pine Rural? What is there? Because then you can start spreading that cost over to more, really, if you get volume. Ainsworth's probably about as small of a community that would probably make sense to buy this type of truck. It's borderline. You get much smaller than that and it probably isn't gonna pencil out to where if we could
Yeah.
get more volume in our truck, that could help out. Not as many people are looking for a guy to run a truck. If they're saying doing 4 days a week, if it takes 2 to pick up Ainsworth, 1 for, you know, Long Pine, Johnstown Rural, something like that, then maybe they've got a little bit of time they can work solid waste too. Now, I don't know how.
Long Pine just bought another truck.
They did. just buy
Yes,
one.
they acquired another truck, and they're planning on keeping going with what they're doing. So, but as far as, we talked about at our meeting last time, about talked about, and that's something that it appeared to be that might work out. I don't know how you'd work the payroll and stuff like that, but I think it could be worked out pretty relatively easy. Of course, you got the situation with workers' comp and stuff like that. That would be something that would be pretty hard for us to account for necessarily, but it would work though. We talked about it, I think we could, because there's guys, we have sometimes where the guys are recycling and actually which we shouldn't be doing. There's occasions where we actually leave the station unoccupied so that because he gets a call, people say that their bins are full, we need them to dump them, and he'll go run and get a trailer real quick and bring it in, and we don't have anybody there because the truck is going to Lex and stuff, so, but I think that would work. I mean, if that's something you guys are interested in doing, I think we could work something out on that.
To me, my main concern is I don't want us to have to steal from other departments
Right.
to run the truck.
Right.
That's not fair to those guys if they were hired to run streets or track or water or sewer. That's what they should be doing. And we've got plenty of good priorities as the city in those areas to where we shouldn't be pouring it on it to pick up trash, especially if there's other options. That's really one of the main concerns. And then the other one is just how we pay for it. I think the service should pay for itself. I don't personally think we should use that service. I think.
The reason that I lean towards the debt service deal is because what we've discussed would be having it paid over 5 years. So, and then at the end of 5 years, the rates would go from what we've estimated was, I think, $21. Then the rates would drop from $21 to, 15 or whatever it was.
I don't see us ever dropping our rates.
Well, right, well, that's what I'm saying. But if we paid.
Wherever they're at now, I don't see us ever dropping.
If we just paid for it with debt service, then instead of starting at 21 and dropping it, we could just start at, 18, 19, maybe just to have a little bit of wiggle room. And then, it'd be fairly consistent at least for 10 years, which seems like, a reasonable guess on how long a truck can last, hopefully longer.
That is one of the benefits of the debt service, as a local government, plus grants and various other things that the city has access to that maybe a private entity would not. And the purpose of that local option sales tax is to service debt, so, and mostly how we use that is because we have, our biggest function besides general government is our proprietary functions, which is water, sewer, garbage. So, the debt service really ends up servicing debt on our proprietary functions, which reduces expenses that would otherwise be absorbed in rates. So it is kind of a tool that has been used and could continue to be used for, controlling rates as you fluctuate through these capital purchases.
I just think we've got enough infrastructure type projects that need to be done, streets, things like that, but that's really what we should be using those funds for. Have a service that clearly there's entities out there that have, it pays for itself. It's a service that's provided. There's businesses that do this. If we're gonna take it on as the city, it's gotta pay for itself. I don't wanna take money that really should be going towards streets, is probably the biggest concern we've got. Well, one of the upcoming items is something that better infrastructure would go towards that, solving those types of problems, not a depreciating trash truck. We should use those long-term funds for long-term projects, in my opinion.
Wouldn't theoretically, if you kept the rates the same through the 10 years, and you had the truck paid for in 5 years, and the trucks last about 10 years, and you would still, wouldn't you have enough at the end of the next 5 years to buy your next truck? Theoretically.
Yeah, in theory, you're gonna gain, you should gain equity, and I would assume there's some sort of, before the truck just ups and quits on you, I would assume there's some economic life rather than a useful life of the machinery, or, like I said, in that 5 to 7, I would assume it's probably your best bet to trade it in before it's junk. But yeah, eventually that, if nothing goes wrong, in theory, that's where the gain is. Now, if real life happened as it does on pencil and paper, things would be real easy to figure that out, and we'd all probably be doing all kinds of money-making things instead of sitting in this meeting right now, but there's still risk to that, to that.
I guess for the sake of, I guess, moving things along, I'd like to make a motion that the city retain the garbage services, and then, I guess, table the rest of the discussion till the next meeting, so we can continue discussing how we're gonna pay for it and things of that nature.
Well, we kinda need to know how we're gonna pay for it if we're gonna go that way.
Yeah, the questions of paying for it and staffing it. I think if we could get a better idea of how it might look, if we could share resources with the KBR, I think, like you said, you guys need the help too. We've covered it is a vital service.
Well, the staffing is kind of a nationwide problem right now, so I don't think that, I don't know that a person can even go down that road very far.
Well, you can't find just anybody to operate this truck. They've gotta be somewhat mechanically inclined, for a long term. Yeah, you said you ran at least, and ran it, but, you know, like I say, you've gotta know what
I
you're doing.
operated the truck.
There is going to be, on either side, whether we do it or we contract it out, there's liability for, you know, people that park on the street. You got this dumpster sitting on the curb here, and you're gonna reach that 9-foot arm out there and grab that dumpster, and they're gonna just get where they're comfortable with it, and they're gonna get in a hurry, and by putting that arm back out there, they're gonna take off and they're gonna hit somebody's vehicle.
That's no different than a snowplow.
It's snowplow, exactly. That's gonna be,
You know,
that is going to
that's
be
just like-
liability on our part, where if we
That's
contract it out,
like-
it's liability on their part. So, yeah, it's the same thing. They can do it just as easy as we can do it, as far as that damage to that vehicle or that property.
And in terms
Scott,
of-
was that an official motion?
Yeah, it was.
We kind of have a
Sorry.
motion.
Oh,
Motion on the
I say
table,
just
whatever.
as a
You could
reminder,
withdraw it.
Yeah, I mean, I can withdraw it for the moment.
in terms of payment, you know, I would just remind the council that we did budget with those scenarios in mind. So you have the budget authority as it stands to support said motion.
Okay, I was gonna say, maybe I'll rescind my motion and make a new motion, or attempt it. I move that the city retain garbage service and pay and consider paying for the new truck using debt services.
Okay, we got a motion. Is there a second?
I got a question about his motion. Was there any opt-out provision in there?
Not
No.
at this time, no.
Okay.
Okay, I think the motion dies for lack of a second. So-
if we order a truck, a new truck, how long what's your estimate time? Cause I know getting stuff, whether it's truck parts, whatever, it's, right now it's almost impossible, you know, getting Ford trucks, getting Chevy trucks, getting all kinds of trucks, they're tough.
And I've had that conversation with the sales rep that deals with truck. They had a certain number of trucks available a month or two ago when I talked to him, that if we could make a decision, you know, sooner than later, there's
First come, first
potential that there would be one available, otherwise it could be bought out, to order a big truck. The other issue going on, but with that in mind too, I guess just if that's the direction it goes and that happens, our current truck needs to be replaced, but it's not on its last leg. And, you know, we can continue to operate as we are until that happens.
I know the one contractor that was here last time, you know, am I right that they said that they would go with a 3-year contract?
Up to 5.
I think we said we
One
could
to
do
five.
whatever. You could do a 1 year, you could do a 3 year, you could do a 5 year. I'm sure you could do a 20 year if you want.
Yeah.
I mean, we could propose it. Would they take it? Probably
Yeah. That's where I lean more towards is locking ourselves in. I myself somewhat like to keep it in-house, but I do know that if we buy a new truck, we definitely got 5 years to pay for it. And so we are locked in for 5 years. And after, it should still be in really good shape after 5 years. More than likely, the decision we make tonight could either be a 3-year decision, or probably more likely it's a 10-year decision. Contracting it out, you know, 2 years down the road, we go a 3-year contract, 2 years down the road, we say, man, we just, you know, this is not for us. We have an end. We have an end. The drawback is to that is by doing that, we have lost our current dumpsters.
And
We'd
by
have
that
to
point, by that
replace-
time, we'd have our trucks gone too, so we'd have a backup truck.
Well, pretty much I'm gonna say we're at ground zero now.
I bet I agree.
Yeah. And 3 years, if it didn't work out, we're back to ground zero, so we're at where we're at right
We're
now.
not, I disagree that we're at ground zero, because we do have some dumpsters and,
Yeah.
and that
Then we
truck,
have
that
the
truck is a
FMV,
big.
well, I
We
think we
have very
figured,
dilapidated assets.
yeah, I think what, 130,000 in assets possibly in our dumpsters.
We're as close as you can be to zero while running a full garbage service. We do have a truck and dumpsters, but they're all in fairly poor condition, if I understand correctly.
But if we.
But that would be something, if you
in
sell
three-
them off, then you do have to.
Right, exactly, if in
Yeah,
3 years we
that's-
decided to go with it, then we'd be less likely to, because we wouldn't have a backup truck.
We don't, yeah, we don't have a backup truck and, you know, then,
But probably, I mean, I assume we'd probably just sell them right off, but I guess maybe not. We could keep one for 3 years and see how it goes too.
It's probably not a whole lot different, guys, than when we had this discussion years and years ago about city police. And when we went to countywide law enforcement, I think at the time it was, oh, well, if it doesn't work out, maybe we can go back to a city police force. The logistics of trying to go back once it's done become awfully tough to make happen. I think that's,
It's a much tougher discussion than how we pay for this truck.
I think that's what it boils down to. 3 years from now, and not all of you will probably be on the council, is that council really gonna have the stomach to make a decision to say, well, now we're gonna blow up this contracted service that we've had for 3 years and start from ground zero on bringing this back into a city service? To me, if this decision's made to contract, I think you guys probably
I've got a hard
know
time
that
making
it's
it
gonna go
10-year.
back
I have a hard time making a 10-year decision.
for buying a new truck.
We did it on a sweeper.
Yeah. We just have.
I was, you know, and that's kind of what I found funny last meeting.
I know.
We had all this about going from a city service to a contracted service for garbage, and in the same breath, we turn around and buy a street sweeper that we used to contract, but we didn't like the service we were getting from the
From the
contracted
contract.
guy, so we bought a street
So let's
sweeper.
get another
So
contract
we're,
going.
Except for we've got a street department that can do that, and we're not gonna rob people from the garbage department to run the street sweeper. But we are taking people off the street department to.
figures here talk about a full-time person
for garbage.
I was gonna say, and keep in mind, the city crew is hired knowing you're going to department share. Our current guy that rides the truck was hired with the intent that he would do half-time at the treatment plant, half-time at the garbage department. And that's how his salary is budgeted. When you do a water dig, the street guys bring their equipment and spend their day digging. So there's cost share going on and moving and helping, and we're a team, you know, so our budget works that way, that the hours you spend here, that budget pays for it. The hours you spend here, that budget pays for it, and we account for it, and we budget for it accordingly.
If I'm not mistaken, this truck also, is it not way more automated than what we are currently running?
Yeah.
I mean,
it'll
if
take
it
less
would
staff
reduce-
to run it, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you know.
Been
if
accounted
you're-
for in this, and, but
I feel
still, where
like,
this is an every 3 times a week thing, it shows up a lot more where they're having to come do this service than it does when the water guys go help out on the street or vice versa. Where this is 3 times a week, it shows up when you don't have
But
the
again,
staff.
the one is hired for that. You know, the other
No, no,
one,
part-time
yes,
is
the
shared,
other
yeah.
one, when.
Just looking through the street, how many times in the street department had report, chop on truck. I mean, a good chunk of the month this month, and then if you've got somebody else on vacation or something, then you've got one guy in there.
But again,
trying
with
to
this
pick it
proposal, that, because we know that's an issue, with this proposal, we would hire so that, you know, we had a driver.
yeah, and I actually see that if you hire a full-time person 5 days a week and he's hauling garbage 3 days a week, he's available 2 days a week for other projects.
And the
street
purpose of
sweeping.
that too,
Yeah.
I guess in the budget presentation was, all of our street crew is 60, you know, 60 to 65, and these guys are gonna wanna retire at some point, and because they're all the same age, we really have no succession planning in our street department. So if you can cost share again, like we just talked about, where you've got a guy half-time in garbage salary, and then maybe a guy half-time in street salary, and maybe you've got some training and some succession planning there. So it's kind of a dual purpose in mind with that position.
I just think if you make this decision, just make it with your eyes open, that it more likely than not is never going back the other way to the city service. I mean, if that's a decision you make, that's a decision you make, but just be open that more likely than not, a future council's not gonna be able to turn around and say, well, we don't like this, we're gonna start from absolute scratch and bring back a city garbage service. So if you do this, know that you're setting this for the long term.
How long will J&J guarantee the rate?
We don't know that.
That's your contract.
Well, yeah, I think it was a.
You know,
We don't 100% know that either, so we don't know our true dollars. That's why I, for sure, $2. I mean, we have an estimate. I mean, they kind of gave us an estimate. Until we go on a contract with them, we don't know to the penny
so
what
he
it's
could have an
gonna be.
adjustment every year.
Yeah, there will be an adjustment every year.
Sounded like built into their contracts, they do a
And inflation.
1% yeah. So, but it would be locked at 5, I think is probably where they cap.
We're getting a lot of good comments, a lot of good discussion, but I think we are starting to get lost in the weeds. We're not gonna be able to figure out all these details tonight. We won't be able to figure out those details until we make a decision. Here's where we're gonna go, start getting the hard numbers. We don't have an exact contract proposal from any contractor now. We haven't asked for bids. So to me, it becomes more a philosophical thing. Is
I'm ready-
the city gonna
I'm ready to
do
make a
this?
motion.
Is the city gonna do it, or do we feel it's better to contract it out?
How can you make a motion and just make a decision without having numbers?
We're back to the
Well,
same
that's-
place,
We've got a lot of estimates.
let's pass it and then we'll find out what's in
We
it.
can't tell you to the penny.
You're saying, let's make a decision on which option we're going for.
That's what I was gonna do.
Yeah, we're just making a decision on which
Not-
way we're
Oh.
going from here.
I'm gonna make a motion that, just the motion that the city retains garbage service.
Second.
Motion and a second, everybody understand the motion? Any other discussion?
I mean, I'd feel a lot more comfortable if we could try and have something official that says we, with the top option to pursue sharing labor with the solid waste. I think that helps out both ends.
And I'm hoping with that motion, that when we start getting these numbers down, that we will, and I have the option of backing out of this, because the numbers just don't
I think
feel
that- I think
like
that's
where we
true.
need to be.
I think that's.
That's why I just wanna pursue this avenue.
Yeah.
If I
And that-
can interject on that too, I mean, that is what we're gonna do in the office administratively, is once you make a motion, we're gonna work really hard to figure out how we can make this work to the best of our ability for the city, for the residents. I mean, that's what we do. So
Either way.
if that means we work with the
There's-
transfer station board and try to hash that out, or we play with our own numbers and depending on what the council, if you want to use debt service or ARPA, like I said, there's a lot of options there that
And
should be fleshed out.
I do think that it should be self-sustaining. My drawback is, we do have a lot of people in this community, not a lot, we have some that are in very fixed incomes. That is gonna be tough to raise their garbage rate $13 or $12 or $15 or $20. I feel for them. But I still think this should be self-supporting. I know I talked to Rod a few times and he had some good ideas on maybe how to do that, but that was going a different direction.
I think there's ways we can work on.
But I agree with Vance that our debt services and our ARPA funds, we have better use for those dollars.
You're actually making two decisions tonight. One is to go to strictly curbside service. And there's been some equivocation as to whether you're going to offer curbside service depending on the person's physical condition. Mendon right now picks up Juan's residents' garbage off the curbside. So I hope you decide that you're either going to pick up all curbside or provide an avenue for people that want to opt out of that, because I'm guessing you're going to find a number of people that are going to expect personalized service. So you want to make that decision fairly quickly.
When I brought it up at the last council meeting and I asked that gentleman there that was here, and he says that they do work with some of the people that are elderly that have hard times getting those toters out to the curb, that they actually do go out and pick them up for a few people, elderly ladies and stuff like that, that cannot drag them in the snow and stuff like that. And so I asked Lisa the same thing. She said, well, you know, we would work that way too. Because there's definitely people that would not be able to bring a 30-gallon
Like I
toter.
say, Haley can speak from experience.
Yeah.
and
So,
Glenn, they're both here.
you know, if contractor service is gonna do that service, I hope if we go in-house, we're still gonna do that same service. We're gonna look out for the residents of Ainsworth and do that.
I was wondering.
Have a need up and if we stay in the city, they're gonna gather on the truck.
And we do that now, I would say, not in going and getting the toter cans for you, because that's not really pertinent to how we do the service now, but we do entertain calls all the time in the office with, you know, people who forgot to set their trash out, and is the truck still out, and they'll circle back, so we have contact with the truck through CB radio, and we do things like that all the time.
How much, you talked about staffing and you were worried about that. Do we know how much, like, G&J might pay an employee? Because I know that I've worked with at least 3 other people on the trash truck, and how much we pay for them to be on there, even just the 3 days and part-time. They are not exactly, feel like they're being given exactly what they deserve for what they do. I just didn't
City
know.
rates are maybe below market.
I'm just asking, because if we want to hire people on, that's gonna be something we need to actually think about.
And that's been discussed in the budget, how we would do that under that circumstance. And yes, that's part of the issue where we have trouble staffing the truck, so we're aware of those concerns.
So what exactly are we gonna be voting on?
That we
Pursue
the avenue of in-house.
Potential labor shares, things like that.
Yeah, what it's actually gonna cost the city to buy a truck, the availability of the truck, and what's gonna cost the residents.
So I think the worded motion though was that we retain the service.
Yeah.
Service, and that's what was second.
But I also asked if we could back out of that if numbers aren't what we want.
Yeah, I feel like this isn't completely binding, maybe I'm mistaken, but.
So right now, I'm looking towards us buying a truck and doing that out.
Clear on that, Vance?
I got a question. As part of that, I mean, you heard Kevin Shaw talk about the fact that all the the bulk of the dumpsters are shot. What would be the plan? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, past councils have been remiss in the fact that they didn't allocate a certain amount of the money to go to buy, 10 dumpsters a year.
That's gonna be a problem if we keep it
Yeah, I mean,
in-house too, because.
I understand that, that's why I'm asking the
dumpsters
question.
used to be $300, $400, or $500.
Well, he said
I've
you
heard
can't-
they're over $1,000.
Yeah, and he says you can't get them down there, but anyway, I mean, if you're gonna do that, you need to allocate something to to buy those things over a period of time, and that needs to be in the garbage rate.
We have rebuilt a lot of, and there is some money allocated. It's probably not enough because of the price of a dumpster, as you just mentioned. You know, it's twice what it was 6 months to a year ago, so we can only get half as many for what we budget. And as a result of that, we've hired locally, a guy, Dean Merlin. He's come out and rebuilt several of the ones that we have. But, so there's some options there to try to extend the useful life of those until hopefully prices will come back down, maybe.
How current were these figures that were in the, for J&J?
Those were from when we
19?
No,
No, those were from November.
Last month.
Those were for last, okay.
they provided that before I
I'm gonna say economically, from a business and residential standpoint, it's cheaper to go with J&J.
remember.
Those are
I
their
think at the
rates
time-
minus tipping.
I understand that, yeah. Right now, for my office, what I pay for the dumpster and what I pay for garbage service is $40.30 a month. With J&J's figures, them picking it up, and then the tipping fee, or the $12.25 per month, it would increase my garbage 8% to $43.73 at the office. You guys raise it to 25%, which at last meeting you were leaning more towards it needs to be self-sufficient because of the streets and that type of thing. My garbage rate, 70% increase would go up to $68. So it'd be rough, it'd be over 50% increase in what I'm paying now. Or what I would be paying J&J. And with the residential, you go with the 70% increase, J&J would be $25 and you guys would be $24.31, figuring what I pay right now. If you went with J&J, you would have ballpark-ish, if you did it right today, sold the dumpsters to them, you have over $300,000 in the garbage fund. You sell the dumpsters, you come up with ballpark-ish $330,000. If you took that, you could, you know, the 755 residential garbage services, you could increase them by the 25% and make up the difference, you know, out of that $300,000 fund you have there to hold down the residential rates for like John and that, so they aren't going up $10 a month. You could hold them down to going up to roughly $3 a month.
For a period of time.
For quite a while.
Yeah.
But 10 years at at $755, you could do it for ballpark-ish 10 years. So figuring rate increase and that type thing, you could do it for a good 5 to 7. And, you know, ease into it, instead of just hitting them all with a 70% increase. But, anyway.
Well, I think if you look at the gross dollars, actually, it's less gross dollars to contract it out in that period where you're paying for the truck. The thought is, the potential gain would be in those longer term years, to where you've exhausted those funds in that example, and then, but that would be one way to potentially keep those rates down on that end.
But your garbage rates will never go backward.
No.
Once, you know, you get the truck paid for, it's, you're not gonna say, oh gosh, what, we got this extra money. let's
That
drop the
time, when
rate."
you have to get a new truck, they're gonna be that much
Yeah.
more expensive at that time. The hope is you don't have to increase them the amount we have to increase them now. They're probably gonna stay at that, really, in with inflation, whichever way we go.
All right, I think we're ready to call for the vote.
Skylar?
I,
Van?
I've been leaning the other way, but if we can figure out staffing with some sort of option to help solid waste out as well, and it pays for itself, I'm interested in seeing what that looks like on Wood Eye.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously. Thanks, folks. Thanks, everybody that came and chipped in. Not an easy,
Now the real discussion starts.
not an easy discussion, but we got a direction and we're gonna do the best we can with that. Move on to item 6, regular agenda. We have an update from CVA. Spencer?
Yes,
Here, you got some
if I may take the floor, is that okay?
What's that?
If I may take the floor, is that all right?
Sure.
Okay. Formally, just want to introduce myself. My name is Spencer Shiflin. I am the new feed operations manager at CVA Co-op down here south of the Main Street. I am brought aware of actually my second day on the job of an air quality issue that had been surfaced around town. Within that time, I had the opportunity to speak with a guy from Nebraska Department of Environmental Quality. Within speaking with them, we took a 4-hour trip around town, and he had been in town for some time watching our facility and stuff. He then decided to stop in, and we give him a full tour of the mill to show him the process of what we do, how things worked out. In that time, we loaded, unloaded several trucks for making feed the entire time. And he came up with the proposed letter that I handed the council members. I can read it, or if anybody wants to see it, I can tell you. Just wanted to know that it addressed to me, the Department of Environmental and Energy conducted an environmental concern investigation after seeing a citizen's complaint at the facility on October 27th, 2021. A copy of this inspection report is closed. It goes on to say, based on this investigation, no violations to federal regulations were found. And asked to direct all comments to Philip Halstead, and gives his phone number. So just want to let you know that we are, cognizant if we have had any issues, that I will be the further point of contact, and just wanted to share this letter, with the council and anybody else who would like to see it, that we are in compliance with everything. CVA does strive to uphold a very tight facility. I hope to do so. Like I said, I've not been here very long. Got a tough road to hoe, but I hope to get there. Hope to work with anybody in the city council that has any issues with me, please, or with the plan, not with me necessarily, but please come find me. I've been in city government myself. I was county commissioner, president of the board there for 4 years, so got a lot of experience on this end of the thing. If you need help in any way, please come forward and feel free to come find me. I look forward to working with you guys and being here. So
I know, I just live right down the street, so I'm one of them that have a lot of dust in my yard and my vehicles and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the last, 2 weeks, I haven't seen any. Couple weeks, probably 3 weeks ago, a lot of wind was coming out of the north, and it was really bad then, but it was blowing it down you guys' alleyway. So it wasn't blowing it towards us. I know last year during, when there was snow on the ground, you could definitely see, it turned everything for a whole block north, a half block north, just yellow. The snow was just totally yellow, so,
Yep.
and like I say, it's coming out of, what I've understood talking to other people, where it's coming out of is the pellet mill cooler vents.
The pellet mill cyclone is where they had formerly had some issues. Again, I guess I'll just update you on CVA's position. We are going to put $1.5 million into the old mill this summer. So that project will actually start 22nd of April. So we will be replacing all of those cyclones. And the process of how it feeds may not be a lengthy process, but those cyclones right now are set with just one motor speed. So when we run different products, obviously the weight and size of the microbes of that different products need to be run at different things. So we will be replacing those to a VFD. So when we're running different feeds, that the cyclones can pull harder to pull off fines at some points than when we're running lighter materials as wheat mids or things of that nature. So that will be one of the emphasis that we're putting on there. Actually, the day that the guy was here on the 27th, the wind was not blowing. The day that he came back and actually handed my report, he couldn't even get the door open. And he says, a lot of this, he says, has to do with just how the dirt blow. He said, you're in the sand hills, and he says, you're gonna get dirt, and you got a large parking lot out here that is rock, and trucks drive on it every day,
If
the
I may
teams of trucks.
say, I live in that block just north as well, and this is not dirt and dust. This is peat and dust. This is yellow, this is
Yep.
really nice colored stuff, and I'm not here. I appreciate your attention to this very much, because living there almost 30 years, it has concerned me. I choose to live where I live, and so I take the responsibility of that. But in the past year alone, I've probably breathed in and dealt with more dust than in 27 years prior to that. Not being Richard here, I can just state the fact.
Nope.
So I really appreciate your guys' attention to it. It does seem to have calmed down considerably since this issue was brought forward, so.
Okay, well, I do appreciate that, and like I said, if anybody has any concerns, please do not hesitate to come find me. I have an open door policy. I will speak to anybody about the issue or whatever. Like I said, we are putting a significant amount of money back into that. Actually, we had meetings here yesterday in this very room, and that's when we kind of got everything hashed out. So that was good that I got those approvals yesterday to know that I could be here tonight to present this to everybody here. So.
Well, Spencer, appreciate you coming and updating us. Apologize that your second day on the job, the guy from DE showed up. Obviously,
No.
you didn't have anything to do with the previous problem.
Yep.
And appreciate that you're working to, sort things out and
Yep.
eliminate that, so that's great.
Okay, well, thank you for having me on the agenda tonight, and I appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, next on the agenda is a request for discussion of Nebraska Highway 7 construction detour proposed location and carnival detour. Dan?
Here. The Highway 20 project, I don't know how many people are aware of this, has been approved. So Highway 20 construction is going to start this summer through town. The issue is when they build the Highway 20 project, they want to start the transition to the detour. My concern is where the detour location is going to be. And I would appreciate, I guess, the conversation being held in public. The truck route, as I understand it right now, is Pine Street, business districts, Walnut and Woodward, and then you have residential streets. If you've been to Valentine lately, you can see what happened to Cherry Street, both at the entrance at Highway 20 and Highway 83. So I'd just like to have a conversation with someone to see if this process has been started with the state of Nebraska to designate which streets in Ainsworth are going to be the detour route for the Highway 7 project. Or is this not, is this news to everyone here?
No, it's not news
Yeah.
at all. We've been through this through the Highway 20 project. Of course, there's going to be detours with the Highway 20 project because I believe their intention, as far as conversations I've had with DOT, is to keep a driving lane clear at all times. So detours aren't going to be necessary, but for Highway 7, we've talked about various things that the city has used that are designated truck routes. Those have been conversations with DOT. As I understand it from Mark Kovar at DOT, it is the state's responsibility for the detour for the state project. The city will have to work in conjunction with them. And obviously, they have to have our blessing before they can set up a detour in there. And through the state's process too, they have a timeline and a process as a state entity where they'll have public hearings and things with their proposed routes where people can come and speak to those as well. I don't know what the timeline is on those public hearings. I'm sure it would have to follow design concept and all of that first. But the city has not given DOT specs on water and sewer, well, yeah, in terms of slope and scale and all of that that they need for construction. So some of the detour discussion has been linked to how far will city water main, sewer main come south on 7, and so that, you know, where can you direct traffic? So some of that hasn't been completely hashed out yet because we have not gotten to the stage for the city's work to hire an engineering firm. In fact, I just had a meeting with Olson's yesterday in terms of kind of what's our timeline on getting information to DOT and how do we meet the requirements of the funding. Obviously, we'll have to procure for engineered design services, so that's something that I will be working on very shortly because you have to advertise for 30 days before you can review the RFQ submittals. So anyway, there's quite a process involved. So there's been some preliminary discussions, but nothing concrete, obviously.
The one opportunity we would have with the Highway 20 project, even though there won't be a detour on that, they could, if there was a preferred route for the Highway 7 that involved any of the approaches onto Highway 20, they could design those into that Highway 20 project. Talk to Mark Kovar about that. So, you know, that's something we need to continue to visit with them about, is if we're gonna have a certain spot or two that would be used in the future, they can develop those approaches to allow for truck traffic at the time they're redoing Highway 20.
And they haven't decided on the 2 streets yet that they're gonna run the truck route on?
Not to my knowledge. They had fleshed out, well, the 2 ones that we've historically talked about when this discussion has come up, which is First Street to Osborne, which is what we did for the carnival last year. And then they've also talked about South Street to Oak. And some of the problems with that is that intersection on South and Oak would have to be redone. Whether the state would do that temporarily or whether the city would want that permanently done to make that more of an official truck route moving forward, those would be decisions the city council would have to make if that became the DOT identified route that they would prefer. At the end of the day, some weight will rest with the city council, obviously, as to whether we agree to that and whether you want that to be built in temporary or permanently.
But with the recommendation of the DOT, because their engineers and stuff looking it over probably.
Have you talked to the county on the road south that we used to use? I know Kenny kind of, you know, was first hearing about it based on hearing the reports from the council discussion on.
By the cemetery?
Yeah,
That way.
and then using pine. I know they said they've worked on that road.
It's better, it's more solid, obviously, because the ditches have set.
I don't think it's any
But it's not
wider.
No, it seems like it went,
Yeah,
okay.
it's
More
not
narrow than it was.
Two trucks. Two trucks could never pass off.
They couldn't, okay, that was the question I
They'd
had.
have to
is
do
that
a fair, they'd have to redo it.
They'd have to widen it quite a bit.
Which would be,
That
if
may
we
be
do
an
more and
option.
more detours, that would be the ideal deal, is to widen that and maybe do an armor coat on that and then have that as your, because that just keeps, I mean, that's, to me, that would be an ideal, but there'd have to be a lot of work done on that, what, half mile, whatever it is.
Yeah, well, it's a mile.
Yeah, it's probably a mile from Highway 7 to Pine Street or
That
something.
would be a good detour instead of coming down First Street.
Yeah, historically, that is, again, what had been used, so.
The chances the state would help with that? I think they have to I mean, they have to help provide the detour, so if you guys tell them that's your preferred route, they may have to do some of that.
Kind of why the conversation was brought up, I guess, in terms of what city, you know, we know we need to redo the sewer main, and we know where those lines are located. We know we need to do the water main. It's kind of a matter of, again, getting the engineer in and designing that so we know how far south we're gonna go if we're past South Street, or if we're ending right at the intersection of South Street, so you can still divert. Because if you're going past South Street, that makes that
Yeah.
detour makes any of those things.
How long are they, or how far are they actually renovating? Have they said, is it going all the way out to like Dan Woods and Fuchs there, or are they stopping? Where are they actually rehabilitating the road, do you know? I don't know how
I feel
far.
like it's not far south of Cottonwood. But off the top of my head, no, I'm not sure. I probably have that in my plan.
Because typically, I think they were, you know, when you looked at those, they did 7 in several segments. And I want to say they've done the segment a little south of town a ways, but I figured maybe.
Yeah, probably starting there at Fuchs and going south from there.
If that's where they redid it the last, you
I
know.
know when we did Plan in Hand, of course, city limit is
It is
just
right
on the
there.
south side of Cottonwood, at least on the east side of the highway. So when we did Plan in Hand, we started basically at Cottonwood and walked, but that's not to say that the state's not going farther south.
Yeah, I didn't know how far, because that plays a role into it too. If they're extending it out there as far as like Woods and Fuchs is in there, that's probably gonna play a decision on where your detour goes.
Yeah, and I did visit with Mark Hovar a couple weeks ago, I guess, about this, and my understanding is when they're gonna do a detour, they'd actually have a public hearing as part of the selection process for the detour route, so I don't even think they could tell you right now where they are gonna prefer. They would probably throw out options and.
Well, I had a conversation with Mark Kovar as well, and he basically identified the 2 options. That's what I'm trying to find out, who else knows, so I know where to go. Both Oak and Osborne Street were part of the Street Improvement District 10 years ago. So owners were assessed a certain portion of the concrete, and I believe it was assessed, determined by benefits. And so now you're gonna take the owners of those streets and you're essentially gonna turn that into the truck route. Does the city incur any responsibility, or any liability, I guess I should say, for the payments made by the landowners for the improvement for the concrete, or is that something that once it's done, the city can come back and take whenever they want? The next part would be, I believe when that was engineered, they gave a spec in the paper, 6 inches for residential and 8 inches for truck route when that was poured. What is the state's responsibility if that road is damaged? Are they gonna be forced to replace the entire route? The next thing is, I would ask you to go look at Cherry Street in Valentine before this choice is made. It's widened a significant amount, and that street already starts out wider than either Osborne or Oak Street are. And so you're looking at the landowners at the junction of Osborne and Oak, basically losing, if you can extend what they're doing in Valentine, basically losing a tremendous amount of property on the street frontage, plus you're gonna end up having a truck run down that street for the duration of Main Street. I would just like to be part of this conversation before this decision is made. My understanding is it's already been designated as Oak and Osborne. That's from Mark Kovar.
First Osborne or south to Oak. Those are the 2. And those are the 2 options that the city has used for the last, well, since the flooding, since 2019.
But if the sewer lines are going out farther on Highway 7, why would you stop at South Street?
Well, and that's why, I guess, the point of the conversation was, we won't know until we have an engineered plan. We're not gonna know exactly how far out city services construction work is gonna go. And then that information is shared with DOT, and then that's all just part of the gathering process to try to, narrow down the options, I guess. So there are theoretics, we have ideas, it's just a matter of we need more information and compile that down to see what are the best options, and then as Joel indicated, the state, again, being a state entity, is going to have public hearings. I imagine they'll have, as they did for Highway 20, not only for the detour route, but they'll have public hearings on what is the proposed construction and what's it gonna look like and what's.
I just know that there isn't a street in Ainsworth that if they widen it as far as they did Cherry Street, these people are gonna have trucks running out their doorsteps.
Well, I don't think they're talking about widening any of city streets.
If you're gonna
just
get
the
2
approaches
semis, if
to
you're
the
gonna get 2
highway.
semis to meet you're gonna have to have a wider street.
No, they'll eliminate parking on that street. That's what they did for the
Yeah.
detour for the carnival. They'll eliminate parking on either Osborne or Oak
Yeah,
for the duration of the Main Street project.
that is part of typically a detour route, is there is no parking on the detour.
Really, the natural route, if that country road was like it used to be, not narrow, and we've got time until that point, but the natural route would be that to Pine and then out. There's already no parking on Pine. To me, that's where we've got time before this happens.
And you know,
Theoretically, we should be able to address our infrastructure concerns on those side streets, on
And
those
don't
routes.
split the traffic, that's the only detour. You know, sometimes during the carnival, you can either go this way or you can go this way. You know, they're both kind of detour routes, just one detour
Well,
route.
and if we go far enough south, I would say on the sewer infrastructure, things like that, go as far south as we can. If that area kind of back behind Cottonwood is one area, one of two areas we could potentially grow as a city if we're looking at growing. Get the sewer right there, go far enough south, address our problem on the county road, work with the county on that somehow, get it in between now and then, fix Pine Street to where it can handle truck traffic and it's not getting torn up. And that's a key route. Really, Pine, Harrington, and First Street are all key routes that really should be concrete. Pine, probably the first one, because we've got the Highway 7 project coming up. We need to divert truck traffic somewhere. Then from there, you could probably, First Street would probably, I would say, be next with the truck traffic from CVA. Plus, when you don't have Main Street torn up, that's probably where you divert them over to Pine. And then eventually Harrington, so you've got two concrete options down to the hospital. So if for one reason, one or the other was shut, you've got an access route that's concrete, that's a solid street. We've got time before we tear up 7. And what's their period, 2024?
3 years.
So it'll probably be 2027, just being realistic.
When I bought my store, which was in '08, they told me that it would be within 2 years.
So maybe 2030.
Who knows?
So we have time to get a solution, I think,
But you're gonna have to make your choice
Sewer lines in the middle.
before this year, because they're gonna begin construction on on Highway 20 this year. And they're wanting to make the transition of the detour into part of the Highway 20 project.
As far as widening out that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really Pine and 20 is a much better place to do that than a residential, because you've got KBR and you've got FSA or USDA.
Problem with Pine, wasn't it the dirt road out there that we walked out?
Well, the east-west road a mile south.
Yeah, right.
That's, since they tore out, cleaned out the ditch or whatever, I don't know the technical terms, but yeah, it's just not built to what it needs to be, but again.
This is the ideal, to me, the ideal detour if it was a better built road.
Yeah.
It might be worth talking to Kenny.
We just need to talk with the county.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, 'cause that'd be.
See if
Because
that's.
Kenny
an option.
basically, Kenny, I'll just tell you, Kenny, the commission meeting said that road's same standard as any of their other county roads, so I'm just.
Depending on who you talk to.
Except the ditches are a lot deeper now, so it looks more narrow than it was. It might be just as wide, but it looks a lot more narrow.
Living right there and driving that road, it would be a hard sell to me to say that it's as wide.
I didn't say as wide as it was previously, he just said it's built to their standards, yeah.
Just say it's within your 1 mile zoning jurisdiction and it's not right and you want it changed. See how that flies.
That might be one instance where 1 mile would be helpful.
So yeah, if that's your, I mean, if you guys say that you're gonna extend your sewer and water replacements out past these other routes, I think the state then is basically obligated to kind of help make that route work, so even if there's a way that they
And I
can work
think
with the
they
county
do.
to,
Yeah, they make the detours work, they
Yeah.
do.
they've
It's
got
just
to
gonna
do-
take some more discussion, but that might, might be where it leads, Dan, I don't know.
Thank you.
We've been talking with them and, we will continue to.
I don't know how much work that would be on the county's end,
you know, where they pulled the ditches down just to widen the driving lanes. I don't know
I
how
know
much
they can get
dirt
some
work
dirt.
that would involve.
I know they get some dirt to build that up.
Yeah, I do too, absolutely. I got plenty of them gonna be coming up. Yeah.
How's that project going?
Oh, decent.
Is that good, Dan? Anything else, or?
No, I was just wanting to get some input before a decision was made, because like I
Appreciate it.
said, my understanding from the state is the two choices had already been made.
We'll continue to work with them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next item is discuss and consider resolution number 21-16, signing of the year-end certification of city street superintendent for 2021.
Through the state of Nebraska, DOT, if you have a licensed street superintendent on staff or on contract, they give you an incentive payment of $3,000. So we do contract Lloyd Smith of Niobrara Valley Consultants to be our street super. He basically helps us with our 1 and 6 and does all of our required filings, and when we meet him, we call him, and he helps out. So that's what this is basically saying that yes, we have a street super on contract, and his name is Lloyd Smith. We'll get that sent in and hopefully receive that incentive.
I move to approve resolution 21-16, signing the year-end certification as city street superintendent for year 2021.
Motion and a second, any other discussion? Call the roll.
Vance,
Aye.
Brad,
Yes.
Skylar,
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Yeah, well, that's Niobrara Valley Consultants, right? That's Lloyd's.
Yeah. All right, next item on the agenda is to discuss and consider resolution number 21-17, authorizing the mayor to sign the retainer agreement with Heather Sickada to act as the LD 840 attorney for the city of Dansville.
Right, Heather has been for the city anyway, an appointment essentially, so, basically this is just solidifying again for the coming year that we would like to retain her services, and then she did attach a copy of her agreement for services. The fees, are the same as what they were last year, so there really is no change in this agreement from what we have had at least last year.
We've been happy working with her, she's been,
Yeah, she's great to work with. She's very direct, and because she works with a lot of other communities, she has a lot of references and things that she's already created, and so I would say the city gets good bang for their buck with her because she's not wanting to reinvent the wheel. So she has a lot of resources already available that she shares with us.
I'll make a motion to resolution 21-17 to go into contract, have the mayor sign the retainer agreement with Heather Sitka to act as the LD 840 attorney for the city of Dansville.
Motion and a second, any other discussion? Call the roll.
Brad?
Yes.
Skylar? Vance?
Motion carried unanimously. Next item is to consider a motion to ratify all actions of Lisa Schradel, City Leansworth alarm representative, identified in the minutes of the alarm virtual annual members meeting of the League Association of Risk Management on October 22nd, 2020, including the election of nominees to the alarm board of directors.
This meeting was a while ago, October 2020, was, they also did their slate for board of directors, and I had been appointed, I think, gosh, I don't know, it's been a few years back, as the city's alarm representative and also as Cater's Always representative to one for voting purposes. So this is just to ratify that this is a true and correct, I think, certification of what I actually did at that meeting, and I would say that it is. From my reading of it, it looks like how I voted.
can you, I mean, without getting into too specifics, there's a bunch of drama, right?
There was.
Is that all settled, all that drama?
It
Is
is,
that,
thankfully.
this isn't going back, is this going back to that or no? Not-
I don't believe so.
Okay, I knew there was some drama at
I
some
think
point.
they had that handled already before this meeting. Yes, there was a lot of drama. The executive director was sort of clashing with the league, which is basically LARM is kind of the sister company of the league, but the way the agreement is written, LARM is the league is the administrator for LARM, and Lynn Rex, the executive director of the league, serves as an ex officio member on the LARM board, and there was some things going on the backside that weren't very transparent, and LARM was kind of trying to break away from the league, and long story short, the membership of LARM kind of came back and voted to stay, keep it with the league, keep it as a municipal pool rather than a private insurance, and that executive director was, I think, probably nicely asked to leave, and they have a new director now who was actually a former staff person, and Lynn is back on the board, and they put in a new slate, a full slate of board members at that time. So basically, I think if I recall, this meeting was kind of re-electing that slate of board members.
I see you have 2 seats on the board.
I represent KBR also, yes. So if you're, I guess, approving of what I did at that meeting, basically what LARM is asking for is a motion from this body to ratify my actions at that members meeting on behalf of the city of Ainsworth.
Move to ratify actions of Lisa Schroeder, City of Ainsworth LARM representative, based off of minutes of the LARM virtual annual members meeting of the League of Associated Risk Management on October 22nd, 2020, including the election of nominees to the LARM board of directors.
Outstanding motion, Vance. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, any other discussion? Call the roll.
Skylar.
Aye.
Vance.
Aye.
Brad.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
What would happen if you didn't approve that, didn't ratify it, since it happened over a year ago? I mean,
Yeah, we probably take our votes off.
Yeah.
So I felt comfortable.
Count down the
motion.
So I thought that was odd too, and I think they do this every year, so actually I did not attend their members meeting this year to nominate, because they did it in Lincoln at the LARM, or at the League annual conference, and I did not attend that, but apparently it's a requirement of LARM bylaws that every member ratify the actions of its representative.
So in 10 years, when you vote to buy a new garbage truck, you can ratify 2021's minutes?
Yeah.
If she wants us to ratify she wasn't there, she's gonna need to provide an
That's right.
All right, next item is to consider resolution number 21-18, they kind of go in order, regarding the declaration of surplus property and offering of property for sale by date.
So, with the addition of the street shop, we've kind of taken account that we have quite a bit of equipment that our street department really doesn't use, it's just being housed. We might occasionally use it once in a blue moon, but for the, amount of storage and upkeep and maintenance and that sort of things, to us, I guess it doesn't make a lot of sense to hold on to it. So Kevin at the street department and the rest of the guys kind of made an inventory of the equipment that they were comfortable not keeping. So listed, we have a 1986 Chevy flatbed. Thanks to the purchase of our new street sweeper, we have a lovely 98 Elgin Pelican street sweeper that we would like to offer for sale.
Would you have the backup?
Let's hope not. 1994 John Deere 644 loader, 94 International dump truck, 56 Ford tractor, a 92 Ford garbage truck, that would be the Ironsides
It's the current backup.
truck that we've tacked it out.
So presumably the one we're using is in better shape than this one.
This
Right.
one, I will admit, is really not street worthy. It's
Okay.
pushing it for us to continue to use that as a backup. It's going to need a significant amount of work.
I was just thinking for if we keep a backup for,
Yeah, this
Going
would
forward,
not be.
that would not be a good
one
one.
we wanna
Okay.
keep, no.
okay.
98 John Deere mower, 2010 Woods mower, 78 John Deere Patrol. And I guess that's it. And all of this is currently housed at the street department.
Did you consider, in the past, you guys have kind of just published and accept bids? County has been going through Big Iron.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of this, you'd probably be better off listing it with Logan, and I think you'd get better
I
bids.
think that would be our preference as
Yeah.
a staff, would be to just list it with Big Iron.
I'm not trying to take money out of Rod's pocket by any means, but.
No, I'm going through that process on Big, it's very smooth, he does a good job.
I think Big Iron's a good deal. The only question I have, about to think, how is our John Deere tractor that we have, that sewer plant? What kind of shape is that in, and how old is that?
It's not that old. It's in good shape. I can't tell you the year. We've had it since I've been here, but that was 6 years, but it was fairly new when I came. So, I would think it's 10 years, within 10 years.
It's not that old, it just smells that way down the street.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know if because you're probably the, one thing's probably got the most value on there was the John Deere, payloader. And I didn't know if you get more out of it, trading it, if you needed to trade that,
Sure.
if you needed to trade that tractor in to update that tractor or anything like that.
Yes,
And
I didn't ask Steve, but as far as I'm aware, we have not had major issues with the
Okay.
tractor. The Honey Wagon, I think, is also in pretty good shape. Yeah, I'm not aware of any concerns on that equipment.
I don't know if this is something to be concerned of or not, or if it's something, we can't even do anything but the line, this is getting pretty nitpicky. The city of Ainsworth reserves the right to refuse any and all bids. If we put this up on Big Iron, we sign off that whatever bids they get is what, so that specific line, is that something we need in there for some reason? Or once we contract with Big Iron, we really can't refuse whoever bids on their side. Get our stuff in as it's up for sale.
you're just gonna go.
That is just something we need to take out. Not a big
This
deal.
That's a rough question.
Just making sure what,
You can actually put a reserve on items on Big Iron. It is they highly
common?
disregard you doing
I
that.
say I wasn't aware.
But you actually can put,
They advertise it all as a no reserve, no holds auction.
it says no reserve on the auctions that are not reserved, but there is reserved auctions on there, especially on the real estate side. They do reserve things, so they will reserve it, but formerly we've sold stuff previously from the city, the county, whatever else on there. There was no sense in putting a reserve on it. It brought significantly more than we were ever going to get through the paper, so,
Big Iron usually does that, so
yeah.
it's a good place to do it. Yeah, that was one question that we could.
Yeah, even if you did a reserve and didn't sell, you'd still owe Big Iron the cost,
Yeah, it sounds like the county's been doing it,
It's been working well for them.
so they, I think we're probably under the same kind of rules as what the county does, as far as not having to hold a reserve or have to, we can refuse the bid.
Can we scratch that line off before they vote, or is that not allowed?
Sorry,
Is that
Norman.
allowed, Rob?
Well, because you're not gonna be offering it.
Whatever the motion is.
You're not gonna be offering it for sale by bid, you're gonna be offering it through an auction.
Yeah, we're just gonna make a motion to put it on
Just
Big Iron.
surplus it, yeah.
Surplus on Big Iron. ain't nothing about,
Yeah, your motion to surplus it and then to, just sell it through Big Iron, I don't think you need the, let your legal counsel answer, but I don't,
Well,
you're not offering it for bid.
sale by bid, doesn't everybody put a bid in on Big Iron?
That's what the button says.
I mean, I think, it's- I think that's just,
I don't-
we're just kind of mincing words here, I think.
you know, it's just like, I'll make a motion to put said surplus items in resolution 2118, list them on Big Iron and sell them to the highest bidder.
Second.
Motion and a second, any other discussion? Ready to call the roll?
I was,
Go ahead.
Vance,
Aye.
Brad.
Yes.
Skylar.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. And that brings us to the city administrator clerk treasurer report. Lisa, what do you got for us this week?
Well,
Month?
as is with everything, I sit down to write the report and I can scratch my head and try to think of, you know, everything that we talked about or not talked about and done or not done, and hope I get most of it. The gym floor, for anybody who's been back there and taken a look, it's basically finished, and the floor itself, according to the contractor, is finished. We'll leave it at that. There's a couple of finish up things that they didn't do when he was here last time. Some trim that's missing, door threshold, seats on the bleachers, didn't get put back, and things like that. So in my discussion with the contractor, he and I over the phone agreed that we would hold $1,000 on payment until he sent somebody back up here to finish that. And at this point, in likelihood, it might just be we hire somebody local to do that. Let's get that project just done.
But the floor is usable.
It is, yes. We're still working on cross connection stairways, obviously, we talk about it, talk about it every month, we're getting closer, but we're not done yet, so, we're, at this point, resorting to phone calls, so we will be getting a little more aggressive as time goes on in terms of trying to hunt those down. So if you still haven't done that, please call the office, we can do it with you over the phone, it takes about 30 seconds, maybe, yeah.
You know ballpark, how much, what do you have percentage wise?
You know, Cody, the last I heard was a few days ago, because I've been kind of in and out, but I think we had about 380 to go, 50%. And I might be off on that number, because like I said, that was probably a week ago when I was visiting with Brad and Lindy about that. So there might have been some that have come in since. Most all of them are residential. Brad has, I think, called basically all of the businesses and got all of those. So basically what we have left is residences. We just spent a lot of time kind of trying to get our minds wrapped around Highway 7, what the city needs to do, what the timelines are on that, what we need to do for potential funding, and how we're gonna make all those pieces fit together with DOT's timelines and our own timelines, you know, in terms of just how long it takes us to get some of that stuff done. At the end of the day, for any kind of SRF funding or CDBG funding, it's pretty clear we will have to procure for engineering services. That's a requirement. So I will be working on an RFQ that we can advertise for that. It'll run for 30 days, and then the city council will have to sit down and review those submittals and try to make a selection for who we would like to do that work, and that will be one step closer on our side anyway, of trying to put some of the pieces together. The solar ribbon cutting, the mayor already kind of talked about that, so glad to have that project finished. The CARC has met a couple of times. They have been working on their biannual report for the city council. They will give that next month. They were going to do it this month, but we kind of delayed because with the sunset of the program in March of '23, we are working, there's a steering committee working to, towards a target special election in August of 2022. So one of the steps of that process is for the CARC to kind of review the plan, see what changes we might want or need to make and what's, you know, within the legal boundaries of doing that. So they've met with Heather and so that was just another piece to that. So hopefully we're working towards trying to have those amendments presentable to the city council in January. So providing we can do that, we'll have both of those items at the January meeting. If we're not done with the plan, we will at least do the biannual report in January. The street sweeper, based off of last month's discussion, we actually received it yesterday, and the guys whipped it out and did some sweeping, so, in preparation for snow, so we're already putting it to good use. Thank you for that.
I saw it in action, and it's doing a really good job.
Yeah,
What are they?
well, I think that mostly they were working on leaves, so I think they were down Oak Street and Maple and maybe Osborne, I'm not sure where all.
They're gonna use it for snow removal too.
It's a powder, it's not, just sweep it up.
Yeah.
Now, seeing like the old one run, you could really tell that they'd have to be weaving in and out of cars. Is that something they're having problems with, or with people parking as they are? Is that fine, or do we need to set up some sort of program that, hey, we're sweeping on an X date?
This one's big enough, they can just push them out of the way.
Yeah.
They'll just suck them up.
Well, certainly it's more effective when you don't have cars.
Just seeing, it was really apparent with the old one where it left that trail.
Yeah, it would be nice if we could set up some type of, like you're saying, I think,
Well, even snow,
you know, just like, on Mondays, the street sweeper is gonna do the east-west streets, and police will park on these front
maybe
meters.
set up, I mean, a limited time.
Right.
And I'm sure when spring rolls around, you know, there's kind of like, I guess more of an idea of when they're gonna be sweeping and how we wanna set that up. We might have a better direction. I guess that will be at the back of our minds for sure, is how we can make that more efficient. So yeah, thank you to the community, everyone. Hopefully we will do a better job now with the sweeping. Three River has run some fiber to this building, so that's exciting for us in the office because a lot of our new processes for accounting and things are struggling with the current connection that we have. So we did, through the budget discussions, you know, we had talked about kind of re-networking. It's been 20 years. Our equipment is old, it kind of needs to be replaced. So thank you for that. We've been in contact with Applied Connected, and they've got some stuff ordered, and so hopefully that's coming soon. And then when they come to do that, they're going to hook in the fiber at the same time. So hopefully within the next month or two, you know, we'll have some of those issues resolved. And also another issue we talked about in the budget discussion, the fire pump and for the suppression system in the mechanical room that kind of caused those issues with the gym floor to start with. I've been in contact with Nebraska Safety and Fire to go ahead and let's get that replaced now that the floor is done, so that we don't have that happen again. And then Olson's was here yesterday. My days are blurring. They did the 1-year warranty walkthrough on the wastewater project. The meters and the lift stations were all deemed completed in December a year ago. So they came up and did a walkthrough to make sure that everything's working like it's supposed to. We have, over the course of the year, had a couple of meters that we had to warranty. For the most part, everything's been working really well, at least on our side. Hopefully, residents don't see a change for the negative. Hopefully it's for the positive. And lift stations, that really the only issue that they found during the inspection was the battery for the portable generator failed. It wouldn't fire, so they're gonna submit that under warranty, and hopefully it will be covered, and it will. No point in having a generator if it's not going to start, so. Any questions from council?
All right, well, thanks, Lisa. I guess with that, we're gonna adjourn at 7:00. Who won the pool?
Rod, did you have over or under?
We haven't done that for years.
We gave up on you guys.
Yeah.
Good meeting. That was, good discussion.
Making progress.
Okay, moving on.
Easy figuring this out, there's 30 days. and 29, I could get 0 calls a text.
I've got 3 or 4 missed calls, 4 texts.
Let me make sure I get your name spelled right, so I don't butcher it.
I'm actually going to, if you would like a copy, I'll just copy this.
See ya.
Spencer Tickler.
Rod World.
Nice to meet you.
I do have those.
Okay.